The Bello Gallico, Book 1. Chapter 1. All of Gaul is divided into 3 parts, which are unique in language, custom, and law, and is inhabited by the Belgae, Aquitani, and Celts, or to the Romans, Gauls. The Belgae inhabit the most northern part of Gaul, closest to the Germans, separated by the Rhine, making them the most remote and most accustomed to war as a result of their constant conflict with their German neighbors. The Celts, or Gauls, inhabit the area of Gaul below the Belgae, separated by the river Marne and Seine, and the area above the Aquitani, separated by the river Garonne. Their land stretches from the river Rhine to the ocean in the west. The Aquitani occupy the most southern part of Gaul, from their border with the Celts, and their territory stretches from the Pyrenees Mountains to the heart of the ocean near Spain. Chapter 2. The Helvetii people considered their territory to be very hemmed in between the Rhine River, Jura Mountains, the Lake of Geneva, and Rhone River. This made it difficult for them to make war with surrounding territories, and since they were a war-loving people, this was an issue. Because of this want for new land, and the Helveti's warlike nature, Origetorix, the most wealthy and distinguished among the Helvetii, was able to persuade the Helvetii people to take their possessions and depart from their territory to conquer all of Gaul. Chapter 3. After being influenced by Origetorix, the Helvetii people began to prepare for their conquest by acquiring livestock and stockpiling provisions. They projected that it would take 2 years of preparation, and they would be ready by the 3rd year. During these 2 years, Origetorix gave himself the office of ambassador to the states in order to persuade Catechus, whose father possessed leadership over the Sequani people for many years, and Dumnorix, whose brother was in charge of the Aedua state, to seize sovereignty in their own states, so that with their 3 nations they would be able to obtain all of Gaul. Origetorix told Catechus and Dumnorix that taking control of their country would be easy, and he would ensure sovereignty for them with his own army. Chapter 4. But then Origetorix's plot of taking sovereignty were discovered by the state, and he was condemned to plead his cause in chains, and if found guilty, he was to be burned to death. Then, on the day set for Origetorix to plead his cause, he drew together 10,000 of his followers to rescue him. After he was successfully rescued, the Helvetii state began to amass a force to retake Origetorix, but he died, most likely from suicide. Chapter 5. Even after the death of Origetorix, the Helvetii were still determined to proceed with their plans to continue preparing for the departure from their land. When they deemed themselves to be ready, they burned all their farms and provisions, not being taken with them, to give themselves nowhere to return to, in order to motivate them to succeed in their mission. The Helvetii then convinced their 3 neighboring countries to do the same, and they united together with them in their mission. Chapter 6. The Helvetii determined they had 2 routes from which they could depart, one being through Sequani, which would be a narrow and difficult path between Mount Jura and the river Rhone. The other was through the Roman province, which was much safer and easier. The Helvetii chose the second path and planned to start on March 28th by going to the Allobroges town of Geneva, where they where there were bridges to cross the Rhone, and either persuade or force the Allobroges to let them across. Chapter 7. But then, when Caesar heard that the Helvetii were planning on marching through his province, he hastened to further Gaul, and ordered the bridges at Geneva to be destroyed. Then, since he only had one legion in further Gaul, he ordered the province to furnish him with as many soldiers as possible. When the Helvetii discovered this, they sent ambassadors to Caesar, requesting to be allowed to march through his province, since they intended no harm, and that it was their only route. However, Caesar did not trust that they would refrain from violence if he let them pass through his province, and did not want to let them in. So he told them to give him time to consider their request, so that the soldiers he requested would have time to be assembled. The end.